The station was massive. Concordia Prime floated in the dark space between galaxies built for one purpose. Today, thousands of beings from across the universe gathered here. They came from planets with red suns, blue suns, and some with no sun at all. They walked on 2 legs, 4 legs, or floated in the air. Some breathed oxygen, others needed methane, and a few didn't breathe at all. Taeho stood near a window and looked at the crowds. He was a simple man from Earth's sole orbital station. He grew plants for a living. His hands knew soil and seeds, not politics or grand ceremonies. But the Galactic Union had called for volunteers from every species, and he had come. Nervous? Jiwoo appeared beside him. She was his friend from the military division. Where Taeho was quiet, Jiwoo was loud and confident. "A little," Taeho admitted. "What if I don't match with anyone?" Jiwoo laughed. "With 10,000 beings here, you'll match with someone. The biopsychic scan finds compatibility in ways we can't even understand." The Harmony Protocol was the Union's greatest experiment. Wars had torn the galaxy apart for centuries. Too many species feared each other. Too many misunderstood each other. The Union's solution was simple but radical. Force compatibility. Make every species bond with another species. Create understanding through connection. Sumin's voice echoed through the station. She was the human diplomat overseeing everything. "Welcome, representatives of the Galactic Union. Today we make history. Today we choose peace over fear. The matching ceremony will begin shortly. Please proceed to your designated chambers." Taeho followed the flow of beings toward the Great Hall. The ceiling stretched up so high he couldn't see the top. Lights of every color danced overhead. In the center stood a massive crystal that pulsed with energy. This was the matching device, built by the Union's greatest scientists. It would scan every being here and find their perfect match. The ceremony started. One by one, beings stepped forward. The crystal would glow, and a beam of light would connect 2 individuals. When the light touched them, their minds would open to each other. Not completely, but enough to form a bond, a connection that would last a lifetime. Taeho watched as a human woman matched with a being made of living crystal. He saw a bird-like creature bond with something that looked like a floating jellyfish. Species that had never even met before suddenly became partners. The air filled with sounds of joy and wonder. Hours passed. The matches continued. Thousands of beings found their partners. The Great Hall buzzed with celebration. Then Taeho noticed her. She stood alone in a separate chamber made of black glass. Her skin was pale, almost white. Her eyes glowed with a soft red light. She wore a long dark robe that seemed to absorb the light around it. She was beautiful in a terrible way, like a storm or a cliff's edge. "That's Queen Velrith," someone whispered nearby. "The vampire queen of the Nixvara Empire." Taeho had heard stories. The Nixvara were ancient. They lived for thousands of years. They needed blood to survive, and they formed psychic bonds with those they fed from. Most species feared them. Their empire was powerful but isolated. They had joined the Galactic Union only recently, and many still didn't trust them. The crystal sent out its beam toward Queen Velrith. The light touched her, scanned her, and then nothing. No match appeared. The beam moved on to other beings. Taeho frowned. He watched as more and more beings found their matches. The crowd in the Great Hall grew smaller. Soon only a few dozen remained unmatched. The crystal scanned again and again. Each time it found matches for others, but never for Queen Velrith. She stood motionless in her chamber. Her face showed no emotion, but Taeho saw something in her eyes. He recognized it because he had felt it himself after his family died. Loneliness, the deep, aching kind that never goes away. Finally, the ceremony ended. Every being had found a match except one. Queen Velrith stood alone in her black chamber. Sumin approached the chamber carefully. "Your Majesty, I apologize. The system seems to have encountered an error. We can run another scan tomorrow." "No." Queen Velrith's voice was quiet but firm. "There is no error. There is simply no one compatible with my kind." "But the protocol requires—" "The protocol was designed for beings who can form normal bonds," the Queen interrupted. "My species requires blood consumption and deep psychic connection. Most beings would die from such a bond. Their minds cannot handle the intensity. Their bodies cannot sustain the exchange." She stepped toward the chamber's exit. The crowd parted before her like water. Fear rippled through the hall. "I knew this would be the outcome," Queen Velrith continued. "I came because the Union requested it. I have fulfilled my duty. Now I will return to my empire." Teho watched her walk toward the exit. She moved with grace, her head held high. But he saw the way her shoulders curved inward just slightly, the way her hands stayed close to her body, the protective posture of someone who expected to be alone. The crowd began to disperse. Beings celebrated with their new matches. They laughed and talked and made plans. The great hall slowly emptied. Ji-Woo found Teho still standing by the window. "Come on, they're having a celebration feast. All the matched pairs are going." "You go ahead," Teho said. "I need to think." "About what?" He didn't answer. His eyes followed Queen Velrith's distant figure as she walked through the empty corridors alone. That night, Teho couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the Queen standing in her chamber. Everyone else had found someone. Everyone had hope for connection and understanding. Everyone except her. He accessed the station's database and searched for information about the Nixavara. He read for hours. Their history, their biology, their culture. The more he read, the more he understood. The Nixavara weren't monsters. They were survivors. Their home planet had died 3,000 years ago. A supernova had consumed it. Queen Velrith had watched it happen. She had led her people to new worlds. She had kept them alive through impossible odds. And she had done it all alone. Nixavara queens bonded only once in their lifetime. It was their biology, one perfect bond that would sustain them forever. But if that bond never formed, they lived in isolation. 3,000 years of isolation. Teho understood that kind of pain. When his family died in the deep space accident, he had felt like part of himself had died too. The loneliness had been crushing. It had taken years to learn to live with it. But his loneliness had lasted only 5 years. Hers had lasted 3,000. He stared at his reflection in the dark window. Outside, the stars burned cold and distant. Somewhere on this station, a queen prepared to return to her empire. To rule alone, to exist alone, forever. Teho made his decision. Tomorrow he would volunteer. The Galactic Council met in an emergency session. Teho watched from the observation deck as delegates from hundreds of worlds argued about Queen Velrith's situation. "The Harmony Protocol has failed," declared Ambassador Krelix. The insectoid being's wings buzzed with agitation. "We cannot force a match that doesn't exist." "We should exclude the Nixavara from future protocols," another delegate suggested. "They are clearly incompatible with civilized species." Sumin stood to defend the protocol. "We cannot give up after one setback. The Queen's genetic profile is unique, but that doesn't mean—" "It means exactly what it appears to mean," Krelix interrupted. "The Nixavara are predators. No prey species will willingly bond with them. And no predator species is compatible with their psychic requirements." Teho left the observation deck. He had heard enough. The council would debate for days and reach no conclusion. Meanwhile, Queen Velrith was preparing her ship to leave. He found Ji-Woo in the cafeteria. She was eating with her new match, a reptilian being named Voss. They seemed happy together, laughing at some shared joke. "Teho!" Ji-Woo called out. "Come meet Voss properly." He sat with them but barely heard their conversation. His mind was elsewhere. "You're thinking about her, aren't you?" Jiwoo asked suddenly. "The vampire queen." Taeho nodded. "Don't," Jiwoo said firmly. "I know that look. That's your I'm going to do something stupid look. It's not stupid to want to help someone. It is when that someone could kill you with a thought," Voss added. His translator device made his hissing voice understandable. "The Nix-Vara psychic bond is not gentle. It reaches into your mind and connects directly to your life force. Most beings cannot survive the initial connection." "Most beings," Taeho repeated. "But not all." Jiwoo grabbed his arm. "No. Whatever you're thinking, no." "Why did we come here?" Taeho asked. "The whole point of the Harmony Protocol is to build bridges between species, to show that we can overcome our fears and connect with those who are different from us." "There's a difference between brave and suicidal," Jiwoo argued. Taeho stood up. "I'm going to volunteer." "Taeho, wait." But he was already walking away. He found the volunteer registration office. A bored-looking clerk sat behind a desk, processing forms on a holographic display. "I want to volunteer for a matching attempt with Queen Velrith," Taeho said. The clerk stared at him. "I'm sorry, what?" "Queen Velrith, the Nix-Vara queen. I want to attempt a match with her." The clerk's expression shifted from bored to concerned. "Sir, I don't think you understand. The Nix-Vara bonding process is extremely dangerous for... I understand the risks." "Do you?" The clerk pulled up files on his display. "Look at this. These are the medical reports from previous attempts at Nix-Vara bonding. 73% resulted in death. 20% resulted in permanent psychological damage. Only 7% successfully bonded. And those were all between Nix-Vara and a single species called the Mektar, who went extinct 200 years ago." Taeho looked at the statistics. They were frightening. But then he thought about Queen Velrith standing alone in her chamber. 3,000 years of isolation. "I still want to volunteer," he said. Within an hour, news of his volunteer request spread through the station. Su-min came to find him in his quarters. "Are you sure about this?" she asked. "We cannot guarantee your safety. We cannot even guarantee the attempt will work." "I'm sure." "Why?" Su-min sat down across from him. "Help me understand. You're young. You have your whole life ahead of you. Why risk it for someone you don't even know?" Taeho was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I had a sister, Yu Jin. She died 5 years ago with my parents when their ship malfunctioned. Before she died, she managed to send one final message. She said, 'Don't let fear keep you from living.'" "I'm sorry for your loss," Su-min said softly. "For 5 years I let fear control me. I was afraid to get close to anyone, afraid of losing them like I lost my family. I existed, but I didn't really live." Taeho looked at Su-min. "When I saw Queen Velrith yesterday, I saw someone who has been living with that fear for 3,000 years. No one should be alone that long." Su-min nodded slowly. "I'll submit your request to the council. But Taeho, you should know that Queen Velrith herself must also agree to this attempt." That was the part that worried him most. Would she even want to try? The answer came that evening. Queen Velrith had refused. Taeho went to her chambers anyway. The guards tried to stop him, but Su-min had given him special clearance. The doors opened into a large room lit by dim red lights. Queen Velrith stood by a window, looking out at space. She didn't turn when he entered. "You should not have come," she said. "You refused my request," Taeho said. "I wanted to know why." "Because I am not cruel." Now she turned to face him. Up close, her red eyes were intense but not frightening. They were old eyes, ancient and sad. "You are young and foolish and human. Your species lives such short lives already. I will not make yours shorter." "What if I'm compatible?" Tejo asked. You won't be. No one is. The scan yesterday didn't test individual volunteers. It only did a general compatibility search. But individual scans can be different, more detailed. Queen Velrith moved closer. Why do you want this? Do you seek glory, recognition? No. Then what? Tejo met her gaze. I know what it's like to be alone. I know what it feels like when everyone around you has someone and you have no one. It's been 5 years for me, and it still hurts every day. You've lived with that for 3,000 years. I can't imagine that kind of pain. Something flickered in the Queen's expression. Surprise, maybe, or recognition. You pity me, she said. No. I empathize with you. There's a difference. Queen Velrith was silent for a long time. Finally, she said, If we attempt this bond and it fails, you will die. Your mind will not be able to handle the psychic pressure. Your body will shut down. It will be painful. I understand. And if it succeeds, we will be bonded for life. My life, which could be thousands of years more. You would be connected to me forever. You would feel my emotions, my memories, my hunger. Can you accept that? Tejo thought about Yujin's last words. Don't let fear keep you from living. Yes, he said. I can accept that. Queen Velrith studied him. Her ancient eyes searched his face, looking for doubt or hesitation. She found none. You are either the bravest human I have ever met, she said quietly, or the most foolish. Maybe both. For the first time, Queen Velrith's expression softened slightly. Not quite a smile, but close. Very well. I will agree to one compatibility scan. One only. When it fails, you will return to your life and forget this foolishness. And if it doesn't fail? The Queen turned back to the window. It will. It always does. But Tejo heard something in her voice he hadn't expected. A tiny thread of hope buried under 3,000 years of disappointment. The scan was scheduled for the next morning. The bonding chamber was different from the Great Hall. This room was smaller, more intimate. Crystals covered the walls, glowing with soft blue light. In the center stood 2 platforms, one for him and one for Queen Velrith. Thousands watched through holographic feeds from across the station. The Galactic Council had made this a public event. They wanted everyone to see what happened when someone challenged the impossible. Tejo stepped onto his platform. His heart beat fast, but his hands were steady. Jiwoo stood in the observation room, her face pressed against the glass. She looked terrified for him. Queen Velrith entered from the opposite door. She moved with the grace of someone who had lived for millennia. She wore a simpler robe today, deep purple instead of black. She stepped onto her platform and looked at him. Last chance to change your mind, she said. I'm not changing my mind. Sumin's voice came through the speakers. Beginning compatibility scan. This will start with a surface-level psychic connection. If either party experiences distress, the scan will automatically stop. The crystals brightened. Tejo felt a tingling in his mind, like someone gently knocking on a door. Then Queen Velrith's presence touched his thoughts. It was cold at first, ancient and vast, like standing at the edge of an ocean. He felt her surprise at the contact. She had expected his mind to recoil immediately. But Tejo didn't pull away. Instead, he opened his thoughts wider. Welcome, he thought toward her. The coldness hesitated. Then slowly, carefully, it crept closer. Images began to flash through his mind, not his memories, but hers. He saw a planet with 2 moons and purple skies. He saw cities built from black stone and silver metal. He saw people with pale skin and red eyes, laughing and dancing and living. This was her home, he realized. This was the Nixvara homeworld before it died. Then he saw the supernova, the star expanding, consuming everything. He felt her terror as she tried to save her people, felt her grief as she watched her world burn, felt her guilt at surviving when so many died. 3,000 years of guilt and loneliness crashed into his mind. Tejo gasped. The weight of it was crushing. He understood now why others couldn't survive the bond. This wasn't just sharing thoughts, this was sharing souls. But then something unexpected happened. His own memories rose up to meet hers. He showed her his family, his parents and his sister Eugene laughing around a dinner table. He showed her the day the message came about the accident, the funeral, the years of grief that followed. His pain was smaller than hers, just 5 years instead of 3,000. But it was the same type of pain, the same loneliness, the same guilt at being the survivor. Queen Velrith's presence in his mind shifted. The coldness warmed slightly. She understood him just as he understood her. Compatibility rising, Sumin's voice echoed through the chamber. Currently at 40%, 50%, this is unprecedented. The crystals around them glowed brighter. The blue light shifted to violet. Tejo felt the connection deepening. Queen Velrith wasn't just showing him memories now. She was showing him emotions. 3,000 years of holding back, of staying strong, of never letting anyone close enough to hurt her. And he showed her his own walls. The barriers he had built after his family died. The fear of connecting with others. The loneliness he carried every day. They were the same, he realized. Both survivors. Both alone. Both afraid to hope for something better. 70%, Sumin announced. Her voice sounded shocked. 80%. The bond is stabilizing. Queen Velrith's eyes widened. Through their connection, Tejo felt her disbelief. This wasn't supposed to happen. This couldn't be happening. But it was. The compatibility scan found something that shouldn't exist. A perfect match between predator and prey. Between ancient immortal and short-lived human. Between eternal cold and warm hope. 90%, Sumin's voice trembled. 95%. The bond it's forming. The violet light around them intensified. Tejo felt something click into place in his mind, like a puzzle piece he didn't know was missing suddenly finding its home. Queen Velrith's presence in his thoughts solidified. He could feel her now, not just her memories, but her current emotions. Her shock, her fear, and underneath it all, something she hadn't felt in 3,000 years. Hope. The bond completed at 98% compatibility. Tejo staggered but stayed on his feet. His mind felt larger somehow, like a room that had gained an extra dimension. Queen Velrith was there, a presence at the edge of his consciousness. Not controlling him, but with him. Queen Velrith's legs gave out. She dropped to her knees on the platform. Her hands covered her face. Medical staff rushed in, but she waved them away. When she lowered her hands, Tejo saw tears on her face. Red tears, like drops of ruby. "I can feel you," she whispered. "After so long in the cold, I can feel your warmth." Tejo stepped off his platform and went to her. He knelt beside her and carefully took her hand. Through the bond. He felt her surprise at the touch. Physical contact amplified the connection. He felt her heartbeat, her breath, her life force, and she felt his. "It's real," she said, her voice breaking. "The bond is real." "Yes," Tejo said. "We're connected now." Through their link, he felt her emotions overwhelm her, joy and disbelief and terror all mixed together. She had convinced herself this would never happen, that she would be alone forever. And now, suddenly, she wasn't. The observation room erupted in celebration. Species from across the galaxy cheered and shouted. The impossible had happened. The unmatchable queen had found her match. Jiwoo pressed her hands against the glass, tears streaming down her face. She was happy for him. Tejo realized through their friendship. Terrified but happy. Sumin entered the chamber, her expression awed. The medical scanners show both of your life signs have stabilized and strengthened. Taeho, your cellular structure is already adapting to the bond. And Your Majesty, your psychic patterns are more balanced than we've ever recorded. Queen Velrith stood slowly, still holding Taeho's hand. She looked at the celebrating crowds, then at him. "You humans," she said softly, speaking just to him through their bond. "You're all insane," he smiled. "We prefer the term hopeful." Hope is for fools who don't understand the universe. Maybe, but this fool just did the impossible. Through their connection, he felt her emotions shift. The walls she had built over 3,000 years began to crack. She had been cold for so long, frozen in her isolation. But now, warmth spread through her, radiating from where their hands touched. She squeezed his hand. "Thank you," she whispered. "I had forgotten what it felt like to not be alone." "You'll never be alone again," Taeho promised. The crystals around them pulsed with violet light, sealing the bond permanently. Whatever happened now, they would face it together, human and vampire, mortal and immortal, warmth and cold, the impossible match that would change the galaxy. As they left the chamber together, Taeho felt Queen Velrith's emotions through their bond. Under the shock and joy and disbelief, he felt something else. Something that made him understand just how much this bond meant to her. For the first time in 3,000 years, Queen Velrith felt peace. 3 months had passed since the bonding. Taeho stood in Queen Velrith's private gardens aboard her flagship, watching strange flowers bloom under artificial light. These plants came from a dozen different worlds, each one requiring different conditions to survive. Velrith had spent centuries collecting them. "You're thinking loudly again." Velrith's voice came from behind him. Through their bond, he felt her amusement. She could sense his emotions now, just as he could sense hers. It had taken weeks to adjust to the constant connection, but now he couldn't imagine life without it. "Sorry," he said. "I'm still getting used to mental privacy being optional." She joined him by the flowers. Over the past 3 months, subtle changes had occurred in both of them. Velrith smiled more often now. She had started to relax around others. The eternal coldness that had surrounded her was slowly melting. And Taeho had changed too. He felt stronger, more energetic. The medical staff said his cells were adapting to the Nix-Vara bond. He was aging slower now. His lifespan had extended from decades to centuries. "HFY wants to run more tests," Velrith said. "She's fascinated by our bond." HFY was a human scientist who had been studying them since the bonding. She had discovered something remarkable about human biology that no one had known before. "What did she find this time?" Taeho asked. "She believes humans are uniquely compatible with extreme bonds. Your neural plasticity is unusual. Most species have rigid mental structures that cannot adapt to psychic pressure, but humans—" Velrith touched one of the flowers gently. "Humans bend instead of breaking." It was true. Since their bonding, other impossible matches had started occurring. A human engineer had bonded with a silicon-based life form. A human teacher had matched with a being made of pure energy, combinations that should have killed the human participants but didn't. "We're adaptable," Taeho said. "It's how we survived on Earth. Our bodies and minds learned to handle change." "It's more than that." Velrith turned to face him. "Your species is young. You've only been in space for a few hundred years. But you've already changed the galaxy more than species that have existed for millions of years." Through their bond, Taeho felt her wonder at humanity. She had lived for 3,000 years and seen countless species rise and fall. But humans were different. They approached the universe with hope instead of fear. They believed in impossible things. "Ambassador Krelix still doesn't trust us," Taeho said. He thinks the matches are accidents, waiting to become disasters. Krelix is old and afraid of change. Ignore him. They walked through the garden together. Teho noticed how the crew members they passed no longer looked at Velrith with fear. They bowed respectfully, but there was no terror in their eyes. The vampire queen was no longer an isolated figure of dread. She was becoming part of the community. Jiwoo found them in the garden an hour later. She had been working as a liaison between humans and the Nixvara, helping facilitate cultural exchanges. "We have a problem," she said. "The Krell Dominion is refusing to join the Harmony Protocol." The Krell were a warrior species. They controlled a large section of the galaxy through military force. The Galactic Union had been trying to include them in the peace initiatives, but the Krell saw bonding as weakness. "They're planning something," Jiwoo continued. "Intelligence reports say they're moving their fleet toward Concordia Prime." "During the Grand Unity Festival?" Teho asked. The festival was scheduled for next week, celebrating 6 months of successful bonding. "Exactly. They want to attack when all the bonded pairs are gathered in one place. Send a message that strength comes from isolation, not connection." Velrith's emotions turned cold through the bond. Not the old coldness of loneliness, but the sharp coldness of anger. "Then we send our armada. The Nixvara fleet will—" "No," Teho said quietly. Both women looked at him. "Violence will only prove their point," he said. "That the strong survive alone. That connection makes you weak." "Then what do you suggest?" Velrith asked. "Let them attack?" "I suggest we show them what they're missing." Through their bond, Velrith felt his idea forming. She frowned. "That's insane. You said that about me volunteering to bond with you. And I was right. You are insane." But through their connection, he felt her considering the idea. She had been ready to respond with force, the way she had for 3,000 years. But Teho's approach was different, softer, more human. "It might work," Jiwoo said slowly, "if we can get them to listen." "The Krell don't listen to words," Velrith argued. "They respect only strength." "Then we show them strength," Teho said, "but not the kind they expect. The strength of connection, the strength of choosing to be vulnerable." Velrith stared at him. 3 months ago, she would have dismissed this immediately. But the bond had changed her. She was learning to see the universe through his eyes, and in his eyes, even enemies could become friends. "You want to talk to them," she said. "I want to offer them what we found, a chance to not be alone." Through the bond, Teho felt Velrith's internal struggle. 3,000 years of isolation had taught her to trust only strength. But 3 months of connection had shown her that strength came in many forms. Finally, she said, "If we do this, I'm coming with you." "I wouldn't have it any other way." Jiwoo shook her head. "Sumin is going to hate this plan." "Sumin will understand," Teho said. "The Harmony Protocol was never about forcing peace. It was about showing that peace is possible." They spent the next week preparing. Teho studied everything he could about Krell culture. They valued combat, but they also valued honor. They believed in strength, but they respected bravery. The Krell fleet arrived 2 days before the festival, 50 warships, each one bristling with weapons. They took up position just outside Concordia Prime's defense perimeter. The station went on alert. Sumin tried to negotiate, but the Krell commander refused all communication. They would attack when they were ready. Velrith stood with Teho on the command deck of her flagship. Through their bond, he felt her readiness to fight. The Nixvara Armada was prepared to defend the station, but she held back, trusting him. "Are you sure about this?" she asked. "No," he admitted, "but I'm sure that fighting won't solve anything." He opened a channel to the Krell flagship. "This is Teho, human ambassador. I request to speak with your commander." Silence. Then a voice responded, rough and gravelly. "This is Commander Grex. I do not negotiate with prey species. I'm not asking you to negotiate. I'm asking you to listen, just for 5 minutes. If after 5 minutes you still want to attack, we won't stop you." More silence. Through their long-range sensors, Tejo saw the Krell ships adjusting their positions. They were preparing for battle. Then Grex's voice came back. 5 minutes, no more." Tejo looked at Velrith. Through their bond, he felt her support. She was terrified for him, but she trusted him. "Broadcast this galaxy-wide," Tejo said to the communication officer. "Everyone should hear this." The channel opened. Billions of beings across the galaxy tuned in to watch. Tejo began to speak. Tejo's voice carried across the galaxy. Billions of beings listened through their communication devices. On Concordia Prime, the bonded pairs gathered in the Great Hall, watching the broadcast. The Krell fleet held position, weapons charged but not yet firing. "Commander Grex," Tejo said, "3 months ago I stood in this station and watched everyone find their match except one person, Queen Velrith of the Nixvara. She stood alone while thousands celebrated around her." Through their bond, Tejo felt Velrith's surprise at him sharing their story so publicly. But she didn't stop him. "I was alone too," he continued. "My family died 5 years ago. I survived when they didn't. That guilt ate at me every day. The loneliness was crushing. And when I saw the Queen standing alone, I recognized that same loneliness." Except hers had lasted not 5 years, but 3,000. On the Krell flagship, Commander Grex listened. His clawed hand rested on the firing controls. "Everyone told me I was foolish to volunteer," Tejo said. "They said the bonding would kill me, that humans were too weak, too fragile. The statistics agreed with them, 73% chance of death." He paused, letting that sink in. "But I volunteered anyway. Not because I was brave. Because I understood what it meant to be alone in a universe full of people. And I thought that maybe, just maybe, 2 people who understood loneliness could help each other." In the Great Hall, the bonded pairs listened silently. Some held hands with their matches, others wrapped tentacles or wings or whatever limbs they had around each other. "The bond formed at 98% compatibility," Tejo said. "The medical staff said it was impossible. The scientists said it defied all known biology. But it happened. And it happened because humans have something that maybe other species don't." "What's that?" Grex's voice interrupted. "What do humans have?" "We're stupid enough to hope," Tejo said simply. "We look at the impossible and think, maybe we can do it anyway. We face the universe with optimism even when we should be terrified. It's probably why we survived on Earth. It's definitely why we made it to the stars." Through the bond, he felt Velrith's emotions shift. Pride mixed with amusement and love. He was right. Humans were insane. Beautifully, wonderfully insane. "You call that strength?" Grex asked. "Hope is for the weak." "Is it?" Tejo challenged. "You call yourselves strong because you stand alone, because you need no one. But, Commander, I've felt what real strength is. It's not standing alone. It's choosing to open yourself to someone else, letting them see your fears, your failures, your pain. That takes more courage than any battle." He felt the attention of the galaxy focused on this moment. Billions of beings waiting to see what would happen next. "Queen Velrith is 3,000 years old," Tejo continued. "She has commanded armies. She has survived the death of her world. She has ruled an empire in isolation. She is the strongest person I know. And do you know what she told me after we bonded?" Silence. "She said thank you. Because even the strongest person in the galaxy couldn't face eternity alone." Velrith stepped forward into the view of the broadcast. Her red eyes met the camera directly. "I have fought wars across 100 worlds," she said. "I have faced death and defeat and loss. But nothing was as hard as standing alone in that chamber, watching everyone else find connection while I had none. Commander Grex, if you attack us, you will prove that isolation is strength. But if you join us, you will discover something I learned 3 months ago. Connection doesn't make you weak, it makes you whole. The Krell fleet held position. Tejo could see their weapons still charged through the sensors. One word from Grex, and they would fire. I was alone once, too. Grex's voice came through, quieter now. Before I became commander, I lost my bonded mate in battle. The Krell way is to move forward, to not look back, to stand strong alone. And has that made the loneliness easier? Tejo asked gently. A long pause, then, no. Then join us, Tejo said. Come to the festival, not as an enemy, as someone who deserves the same chance we all got, the chance to not be alone. On Concordia Prime, the bonded pairs held their breath. Su-Min stood in the command center, her hand hovering over the defense protocols. The Nix-Vara Armada waited for orders from their queen. Velrith took Tejo's hand. Through their bond, he felt her fear that this might not work, but he also felt her hope. She was learning to hope again because of him. Your time is up, Grex said. Tejo's heart sank. He had failed. Then Grex continued, but I will give you 5 more minutes. Tell me how this bonding works. Relief flooded through Tejo. Through the bond, he felt Velrith's surprise and joy. It starts with a compatibility scan, Tejo explained. The system measures your psychic patterns and biological markers. Then it searches for someone whose patterns complement yours, not someone identical to you, but someone who fits with you like a puzzle piece. And if no one matches? 3 months ago, we would have said you were incompatible. But we've learned something since then. Humans can bond with almost anyone because we adapt. Our minds are flexible. Maybe Krell are the same way. Maybe you just need to be willing to try. The galaxy waited. The Krell fleet powered down their weapons. I will come to your station, Grex said finally. Alone. If this is a trap, my fleet will destroy you. It's not a trap, Tejo promised. It's an invitation. Commander Grex arrived 2 hours later. He was massive, covered in thick armor-like skin with 4 arms and sharp claws. His species had evolved as apex predators on a harsh desert world. They had conquered through strength and intimidation. But when Grex stepped into the bonding chamber, Tejo saw something in his eyes, the same loneliness he had seen in Velrith's eyes 3 months ago. The compatibility scan began. Crystals glowed around Grex. The system searched through millions of psychic patterns, looking for a match, and found one. A human woman named Da-Un stepped forward. She was a ship engineer, practical and bold. She had lost her partner to a warp core accident and had volunteered for the protocol, hoping to find purpose again. The bond formed at 87% compatibility. When it completed, Grex dropped to his knees, his 4 arms wrapped around himself. I can feel her, he whispered in his gravelly voice. I can feel warmth again. Da-Un knelt beside him, tears streaming down her face. Through their new bond, she felt his decades of loss and loneliness. And he felt hers. The great hall erupted in celebration. The Krell fleet stood down completely. Commander Grex sent a message to his people, telling them about the bond. Within days, more Krell arrived, wanting to try the protocol themselves. The Grand Unity Festival began the next morning. Thousands of bonded pairs celebrated together. Humans with crystalline beings, reptilians with energy forms, predators with prey, and now Krell with humans. Tejo stood with Velrith on a balcony overlooking the festivities. Through their bond, he felt her contentment. She was happy in a way she hadn't been for 3,000 years. You were right, she said softly. About what? About hope. About connection. about all of it. She turned to him. You humans are terrifying. You face the universe with hope when you should be afraid. You believe in impossible things. You connect with beings that should be your enemies. Is that a compliment? It's an observation. But through their bond, he felt her affection. You changed everything, Tejo. Not just for me, but for the entire galaxy. He looked out at the celebration below. Beings from hundreds of worlds dancing and laughing together. Connections forming that would have been impossible 6 months ago. I didn't do it alone, he said. You changed too. You learned to hope again. To trust again. Because you showed me how. They stood together, watching the festival. Through their bond, their emotions mingled until it was hard to tell where one ended and the other began. Human warmth and ancient wisdom, mortal hope and immortal patience. Two impossible things that had become one. Years later, historians would mark this festival as the turning point, the moment when the galaxy truly united. The Galactic Union expanded to include over 2,000 species. Wars became rare. Understanding became common, and it all began with one human who was too stubborn to accept that someone should be alone. One human who looked at 3,000 years of isolation and said, not anymore. Queen Velrith ruled her empire for another 5,000 years, and through all those centuries, she never stood alone again. Tejo lived far longer than any human should, sustained by their bond. They faced the universe together, showing others that the strongest force in existence wasn't weapons or empires or armies. It was connection. It was hope. It was two people choosing each other over and over again, even when the universe said it was impossible, especially when the universe said it was impossible. Because that's what humans do. They look at the impossible and make it possible. They bring warmth to the cold. They bring hope to the hopeless. They bring connection to the isolated. And sometimes that makes all the difference.